Bobby Boy.
Trips on.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on another edition of Tacklecast. Got a special guest today, joined by Taylor Watkins, NPFL angler, Cumberland champion.
Yeah.
One-day shootout,
Yeah.
as we were just talking about. So figure, kind of today we'll just kind of go and we're going to pick your brain, give you a rundown, because that's such a interesting event that happened. If you guys don't know, it was supposed to be, a 3-day event?
Supposed to be 3 days. Supposed to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday we had sleet, snow, rain. The lake was rising. I walked down to the boat ramp, and I think the lake was rising nearly a foot an hour, a foot and a half an hour.
Wow. That's a lot of water for those fish to move, too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got condensed to 1 day.
That's
One day shootout for $50,000.
That's right. First time ever that I know of a 1 day tournament for $50,000.
So how did you, prior to that, on your pre-fishing and stuff, were you on it? Had you found anything?
No, I thought that the whole deal was going to go on down the lake, on the south end of the lake, down by the dam in the clear water. I had bought tons of baits, tons of baits.
Right.
I've spent my fair share,
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And I went down the first day of practice and spent the first day of practice down by the dam, and I got one bite at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right before dark, and it was a 12-inch spotted bass, and that was it. And so, day 2 of practice, I decided that I needed to go up in the river in some dirty water and just see what I could find. And that day, I got into one little section, and I got 3 bites fairly quickly, not crazy fast, but fairly quickly. And they were all good, solid keepers.
Right.
And that was it for the entire day. Day 3 of practice, I went back to the dam, and I caught 1 short smallmouth. So really, I didn't have anywhere else to go.
Right.
I wasn't on them, but I didn't have anywhere else to go.
Well, 3 fish better than 1.
3 fish is better than none.
Yeah. So that we were all watching that kind of with interest. It was like, man, it got canceled. Well, they're going to push it back. And then all of a sudden it was like, it's going to be 1 day event. And we're like, okay, let's see what happens.
So I live in the Knoxville area, Knoxville, Tennessee, and we've got those Highland reservoirs there. And at those Highland reservoirs, I fished a lot of, 1 day jackpot tournaments. And I say jackpot, but team tournaments.
Sure.
Some of them were $10,000 to win.
Oh, yeah.
But I work all week, so we would go practice the weekend before. So we'd go practice the weekend before, and then during the week we'd get these big rains, and the lake would just fill up. Same conditions, a little bit of a warm rain, but still cold conditions. And every one of those tournaments were won on largemouth. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it year after year after year after year. And of course, there would be some guys in the top 10 that caught smallmouth and things like that. But I knew that the largemouth were going to win, that was going to be the way to win. And, coinciding with that, I had only gotten 3 largemouth bites during practice anyways. So that lower end was just completely out of my mind. Mm-hmm. I didn't worry about it. I just knew that I was going to go into this particular creek, and I was going to put my head down and figure it out. And that's what I did.
Right. So. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I think probably kind of alleviate some pressure off knowing you're not looking for a pattern that's going to sustain itself for 3 days at this point. You're just looking for bites. And
to start the tournament, I was looking for 1 bite.
Yeah.
That was my goal, was to catch 1 keeper fish just for points' sake. Let's get out of here, and not just dig us a huge hole right at the beginning of the year. And I caught that first fish, and it was, a relief.
Right.
And then I caught the second one, and then the third one, and then the fourth one. And I'm like,
Wait a minute.
We got a little something going here, And
right.
so then I really started hustling, and I was hustling the whole time, but I, was really starting to get dialed in is the word I'm looking for. I'm starting to get dialed in, and I kind of started hitting some similar places that way, and then I caught number 5, and then I culled, and I culled again, and culled again. And then I finally found the stretch where I ended up throwing this Booyah covert spinnerbait. And whenever I found that particular spot, and I caught a 5-pounder and then another 5-pounder, and, you know, which it just kind of got dumb after that for a little bit. But yeah, it just kind of, the day just kind of developed. It was one of those days that you just kept your head down and things just kept happening.
Right.
You know?
So, and I'm assuming it is cold colored water. Were you slow rolling that thing?
Oh, I was creeping it.
Rod tip, just as slow as you could.
Just as slow as I could creep it. Just trying to keep it on the bottom. I was throwing a 3/4 ounce. I threw a half during practice, and I really noticed that half would lift off the bottom. Mm-hmm. So where, you know, you'd just roll it as slow as you possibly could, but it would just slightly rise. Yeah. Well, this 3/4, and the way that this covert's designed with the head design on it, it doesn't try and roll at all. Like that big spinnerbait with a number 6 blade on it, it'll try and lift. Well, the way this thing is designed with the head design on it and throwing it on a 3/4, with it being 3/4, it kept that thing true, and it stayed down there on the bottom where those fish were.
And what depth were you throwing it?
So I was fishing a bluff, and the bluff came down, and there was a ledge there in about 8 to 10 foot of water.
Gotcha.
And it made a ledge that stuck out and then dropped off into about 25. And those fish were sitting in about that 8 to 10 foot right there on the edge on that little ledge.
And that's impressive. If you guys had, I mean, its bait's been out a little while, that covert, but to keep that, Hildebrandt makes big blades.
Yeah.
Big, heavy blades. They're awesome. But to keep that, even with 3/4 ounce, to keep that thing on the bottom in 10 foot of water is pretty
it's
impressive.
Creeping. It's barely creeping, that thing.
Now, I'm seeing a trailer.
Just a straight split tail Zoom trailer, just old school, straight. No,
some heft to it.
No action, just to give it just a little bit of meat, you know. And whenever the water's cold like that, the water was, during practice, it was around 48 degrees. Mm-hmm. And I think I found the warmest water in the whole lake, and it was 53, 52. Yeah. So, but that is a huge difference for those fish. Even in that creek, closer to the mouth of the creek, it was in that 49 to 50. Mm-hmm. And where I was, it was 53 to 54. And that's a huge difference for those fish that time of year, especially whenever you got that water coming in. And those fish aren't used to that. I'm
waiting for ours to get that warm.
Yeah.
Like, come on, let's get here.
Yeah, I bet.
Let's get on it. Some of our lakes, you know, Stockton a couple weeks ago was like 39 main lake, you know, so I'm ready for it. You're talking 51, 52. I'm like, come on, let's get there.
Yeah, yeah. My hands sure weren't feeling 51, 52. It was cold up there. So, yeah.
No, that was really neat. Such kind of like you had just mentioned, kind of right before you were almost bummed you weren't fishing for 3 days.
Well,
a little bit, or they didn't move it back, or.
Well, from a competitor standpoint, so that 3-day event really plays into my wheelhouse.
Gotcha.
So I kind of pride myself on being a consistent angler, and I kind of joked with John Sokup before the day one. I said, I'm not John Sokup. I don't catch 25, 26-pound bags. I said, I catch 14, 14, 14, you know, right. Or 14, 15, 16, you know, and that's how I have kind of done well.
Yeah.
And with it being so tough, I knew there was going to be a lot of guys that zeroed, and, you know, I was afraid I was going to be one of those guys that zeroed, and I wasn't going to have that second chance to go and catch one, you know, and for points wise, you know, and I mean, 2 days on the water is much better than one to try and catch a bass and get your points. But, you know, it is what it is. And there was a lot of guys that, you know, were upset about it, but it was like I told a bunch of them, you know, it's somebody's going to win $50,000 and it just will be me.
Right.
And so that's kind of the attitude that I took at it, you know.
And for those that may not, you know, NPFL is what, second year?
Yep.
Right. Second season here. If you're not following it, it's a really cool format. A lot of great anglers on it. It's really interesting. But what was that winning weight?
23 pounds and 6 ounces on Cumberland.
Yeah.
Kentucky on Cumberland Lake.
So that 14-pound bag guide throws in a 23-pound bag to win.
Yeah.
So that's why talking about what I mean, because it was a considerable margin. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I mean, second there was a
15 pounds.
50, yeah, it was
8 pound difference.
It was like taking folks to the woodshed. It was a beatdown.
But here's the thing. So if it would have been a 3-day tournament,
yeah,
I caught that first 5-pounder. I had 16, 17 pounds. I would have left.
Sure.
You know, I may have fished just a little bit more. I think I probably would have had 17 ish. You know. But with it being a 3-day tournament, I would have most definitely left. Sure. I was in there by myself. So with it being a 1-day tournament, man, I just pounded it. Yeah. I mean, I hit it for all it was worth. And, you know, so that's why it would have looked a lot different had it been a 3-day tournament. Sure. And, you know, so it is what it is. But that's how we play the game. You know, I mean, if it would have been other circumstances and there would have been a bunch of people around, I probably would have stayed on it and pounded it. But that's all part of the mental game and all part of the things that you go through on the water that you process while you're on the water with time, and you learn those different things. And I'm not always saying that I always make the right decisions, you know, but we make the best decisions that we can at that certain time. Right. And we just have to deal with those consequences.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, you get a lot of young guns, especially the high school and college and stuff going on. I think you get a lot more young guys now that are understanding like a pattern or something over 3 days and get into decision making. But, you know, not that long ago, and a lot of people struggle with it now that you're good on that local level and maybe want to take that next step. But so much of that mental toughness, that like just exactly what you're talking about. Do I stay? Do I leave this for the next day? Yeah. You know, what do you, those decisions are more or less, I mean, probably more important if you find them, you know, and you go find fish. That's great. You know, can you sustain it for 3 days? Or, okay, you go day 2. If, you know, someone's on that spot, you know, do you spin out? Do you know, what do you do?
Or do I just burn this to the ground and go start fresh tomorrow?
Yeah. So it's all that, you know, that's to me is what really separates, you know, guys like you finding that success. Cause I know I don't have it straight up. I am not that good at sustaining something like that for that length of time. You know, give me a 1-day format all day long and I'll still spin out just fine on my own. So it's all good. But were there any other baits that you were going to, or did you know, I mean, conditioned wise, it was spinnerbait. But Cumberland, typically this time of year, I mean, you're looking
crankbait, jerk
baits that.
So the water was too dirty in the area that I was at for a jerk bait. Mm-hmm. I did throw crankbait some, and so whenever I started in the morning, you know, I mean, I just sampled. I started with a crankbait. I would pick up the spinnerbait. I would throw a jig. I, you know, flipped some trash piles, and I just felt around until I got a bite. I got a bite on that. The first one was a 3-pounder. And then I went to a run-in. There was a run-in just across from me. I went to the run-in, and I caught 2 more. So I had 3. And then the water cleared up. It was clearing. The further I went back, the clearer it got. Mm-hmm. And I actually swapped to a 1/2-ounce War Eagle spinnerbait in that cleaner water. And I caught my 4th keeper. I caught my 5th keeper. I culled a couple of times. But then I kind of moved back down into the lower parts of the creek where I ended up initially catching all the big ones on the covert. So, yes, 2 different spinnerbaits did play a role. And I just adjusted with that watercolor. And adjusted my bait with the watercolor. Still a spinnerbait, but just adjusted the color and the color of the blades. I had double wheel leaf silver blades on that particular spinnerbait. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's that big old I mean, guys, I haven't fished that Booyah, the Covert a lot. You know, came out. It's been out for a couple of years now. Yeah, 3 years or so. Yeah, it is a really well built spinnerbait, but there is something to be said this time of year in stained cold water. That big old thumper Colorado blade, you know, is all Stan Sloan. Or even, you know, War Eagle does make some of the Colorado blade, like an orange kicker. If you guys haven't thrown anything like that, do yourself a favor and start, because it's not just a bait plug, but I really like fishing a spinnerbait, and it's not as glamorous as it has in years past. You know, it doesn't seem to get the publicity. Yeah, but man,
It's a good bite.
Yeah.
It's a different bite with that big blade and stuff. It's very conditional.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have to have things happen right. Jason Christie is an expert at it. You know, I mean, he can go make it happen just about anywhere, you know, but whenever you've got, I'm not going to say cold, but cooler, stained water, that I would definitely have it tied on.
It's even about this time last year, we've got a little lake here, Pomme de Terre. It's an hour up the road. We went a really good friend of mine last year, we went way up the river, and you could just call your shot. Like if you, big old Sloan, I'd put a big old Indiana on it in any laydown. Yep. You could not get a blade big enough, it seemed like. You could throw, Buddy had a War Eagle finesse spinnerbait and some other things, and I was behind him.
Just catch
and you could not go big enough. It seemed like that day. You know, even current was coming down on it. Water was clean.
Yep.
But it was just that those fish wanted that bigger profile.
Yep.
And so that's something I think everybody likes to go smaller and smaller these days and get finesse. And
well, I really feel like too is, you know, a lot of these clean, clear reservoirs, those fish rely on sight to feed. They're sight feeders. That's what they do. Whenever the water gets dirty, they don't know how to feed. The only thing that they can feed off of is their lateral lines and what they feel. And you put that thing coming down through there, thump, 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 well, they can feel it. And they, you know, they commit to it because they can't see it. All they can do is feel it. You know, I mean, they can see it, but it's, you know, definitely they're feeding more on feel, and it's something different for them. So it kind of trick them a little bit.
Well, that's, I know if in Knoxville and probably, but I don't know your Table Rock experience, but that was real similar. It was, we talked about it in a podcast earlier. But we had a couple years, it was like a year off, but 2 years in between, but like 30-foot flood events in like right now, March into April.
Yeah.
And
I bet it
those fish, you know, the first year it took guys a little bit
to figure
it out because it did. And that was that picnic table pattern or the grill pattern or playground equipment pattern, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, guys figured out it rose so fast that some guys, if you went initially, you'd find clean grass, like a yard.
Yeah.
Because earthworms and everything else would come up and those bass were up there munching.
Yes.
And then after that, it was, if your spinnerbait wasn't like a number 7 blade, didn't really matter if it was Willow or Colorado. And I know a gentleman that won a lot of money, that he'd had like a 6-inch Mr. Twister trailer and like 2 trailer hooks coming off of the thing. I mean, big stuff, and throwing, and in smallmouth they're feeding right up there with largemouth too. Like it didn't matter. You'd swing on a 5 or big old smallmouth or big old large. You just didn't know, but it was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
A lot of fun.
That's cool.
So the spinnerbaits, I guess what I equate, and you think about that, and that's when you're talking about Cumberland too. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh man, I know that bite.
Yeah.
Like it's such a you know.
It's a fun bite.
Maybe they come up behind it. Maybe there's just a little slack, or maybe you're tick. But sometimes if there's just they just
unglued on
mad at it, or you get just 2 foot of slack knocked into your line out of nowhere, and have to catch up with it. It's a fun bite. I'd rather throw that over. I mean, we're in wigglewort country, and I'd rather if I think I can catch them on spinnerbait, I'm going to try to catch them on spinnerbait.
Yeah, that's right.
But now, so this is year 2. Had some really good success last year as well.
Yeah, I won the last event.
Yeah.
So kind of back to back, but they wouldn't let me count it.
So, what's your goal this year? I mean, where do you start? You go.
Yeah, so I got one. So the schedule sets up. You know, I thought I had a decent chance at Cumberland. You know, and it turned out really good. We go to Hartwell next. I mean, I'm confident. You know, I think it's going to play into my hand a little bit.
Right.
And then we go to my home lake, Watts Bar. I've got a lot of experience there. And then we head north. I've only been north one time.
Right.
We go to Sandusky Bay and, somewhere at Saginaw. Gotcha. And so I'm excited about those.
Sure.
But, you know, it's one of those things that we're going to see where we stand where we get there.
Yeah.
You know, I wished I had a little bit more time to go up there and spend a couple weeks before the tournaments and get used to the big water and doing a lot of those type things, applications. But whenever we get to that point, we'll worry about that. But the main thing right now is worrying about Hartwell, and then we'll worry about Watts Bar. And then we'll worry about the other two, you know. If we're in contentions for Angler of the Year after Watts Bar, then, you know, we might play it a little safe up north and do some things like that. And then we head down to Florida in the fall. So
yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
That's going to be. I was looking at that, and that's that time of year. I obviously I don't follow the local tournaments down there.
Yeah.
You know,
especially that time of year.
Yeah, but that time of year, I don't know anything about it that time of year. So
I don't either.
It's interesting to see what's going to happen.
Me too. I mean, I think it's going to be fun. I think, you know, I think it could be like a pre-spawn kind of deal because those fish spawn in January.
Right.
December, January, February is when they do their biggest part of their spawn. So in my mind, I'm thinking it's going to be a pre-spawn type tournament. I don't know. It may be more of a fall. I don't know. I've never been there. I got to do research, but like I said, we're doing one at a time. Hartwell,
right.
You know, and whenever that time comes, I'll do my research and I'll, you know, focus on that situation.
So coming off of or getting ready for Hartwell, you know, we were just there last weekend, 2 weeks ago for the Classic. Jason Christie's win, pitching a jig around docks. You know, that final day, looking for bites. What do you think is going to play? Same thing. That wacky rig going to be more of a player, with a little warmer, skipping around docks, or
I was kind of upset to see Jason win that way. You know, because that was kind of my game plan, and you know, but it is what it is, and Hartwell's known for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think so. I think it depends on the weather that we have. I think we're supposed to have a good warm week now. We had a major cold front push throughout the country. And I think we're going to be done with all that stuff. So these fish are going to be pushing up to spawn. I think they're going to be in all three stages. I think we're going to have post-spawners, pre-spawners, and fish on the bed. And I think it's going to be one of those tournaments you can fish however you want.
Yeah.
You can fish for whichever ones you want to fish for. You know, definitely those pre-spawners are going to be bigger. Yeah. And I think finding the area that – you've got to find that area where you've got pre-spawners, post-spawners, and spawners. And you got to find that spot where you got them coming in and going out. If you can find that spot where they're coming in, going out, and you've got the herring in that same...
I said it's such a factor on those lakes.
Well, if you have that collision and you find that area of the lake and that stretch that's happening, it's game over.
Yeah.
You know, it probably wouldn't matter what bait you're throwing. You catch them. I think you got to find that spot. You got to find that area or section of the lake that all three of them's happening. Like maybe upriver, they're already done. Gotcha. Maybe downriver, they're all pre-spawn. But that midsection might be, you know, pre-post and bedding.
Somewhere's going to have the juice.
That's right.
Some part of that lake.
Trifecta of everything going on at one time.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I imagine kind of if you're alluding to going with a jig and a dock scenario, I imagine you're wanting a little largemouth. You're not wanting to chase the Kentuckys.
I don't want to chase no spots.
The spots, yeah.
I mean, if I have to catch a spot, you know, or catch some spots, I don't think spots are going to win.
Right.
I mean, they might cut you a check. They might cut you a 20th place check, but I don't even know that spots will get you in the top 10.
Yeah, when I think if those largemouth are shallow, from what we saw last week, because I'd never been there, but that lake, beautiful, clear water. Yeah. You know, I've heard
big.
Yeah, I've heard from a couple. You know, they've had a couple guys, local guys that have fished. You know, some of the qualifiers and stuff out there. You know, a lot of guys that's in the fish in the fall were like, man, it fished like Table Rock. You know, at that time, and I'm not saying it is now, but you go out there and you look at it, it's clear water, but you've got beautiful rock transitions. Yep. You know, that clay to mud to big chunk rock, gravel, docks, just good depth, shallow flats. All it just looks fishy.
Yep, standing timber.
Yeah,
everything. And I think that'll kind of play into my hand a little bit. You know, I won Grand Lake, Oklahoma, and then Cumberland. Yeah, I mean they're not the same, but Highland reservoirs. This is another Highland reservoir. The only difference is it has bluebacks in it.
You're right.
You know, and you kind of
nomadic herds of fish.
Yes, but you're also going to have those resident fish too.
Sure.
You know, not every single fish is out there chasing the blueback.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you can find that trifecta where they're all together, the blueback chasers are there, the spawners are there, the post spawners are there, the residents are there, it'll be lights out.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
And that's in 2 weeks?
No, it's April 17th.
Oh, okay. So it's a little bit of time. You got a little bit of time in between.
Yep.
That's good. So, I mean, you get a little bit of time relax and not be on the road for.
No, I just go home and go back to work.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
It's relax. No, I mean, I'm a plant manager for a foam and plastic company, and I won $50K on Saturday, and I got up at 5:30 on Monday morning, and I was back at work.
I love it.
So
I love it.
Yeah.
That's the way that it kind of, a lot of guys on the NPFL are that way.
It is. That's, I mean,
I think
it's set up that way.
I think it adds to the allure for me as a spectator. Like say, if you guys haven't familiar with it or check it out, you need to.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's a neat. The anglers are neat. The lakes are hitting prime. It's just a fun deal to watch.
Yeah. So the tournaments are spread out that way, so that us anglers that do have full-time jobs or own a business can take care of those things. So all of our tournaments are the ownership group promised 4 weeks. So no matter what, if we have an event, you're going to have 4 weeks. And I mean, that's just enough time to get everything back in order and rolling good again, and then you leave and it all gets screwed up again. So it's perfect.
Right. Get to work.
Yeah.
Make up the lost ground and then go.
All right, I'm out. Leaving again. That's right.
I understand that.
Yeah,
100%. I understand that.
It's great. So yeah.
But well, Taylor, I appreciate you coming in and taking the time talk with us today. Certainly excited to see what Hartwell's going to bring for you here coming up. So
yeah, me too.
I'll name drop NPFL if you guys want to check it out, like it on Facebook, follow it. I think you should.
Yep.
Really cool format, cool circuit.
Yep. If you're not following me, I'm part of the Baitworks crew now.
That's right.
And joined on this year. So yeah, y'all go follow me at TDW Fishing on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again down the road here. Thanks.